Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to my regular update from Washington. I hope everybody is getting through the heat today. It may be one of the hottest days of the year. I got three topics I want to hit on the top, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. The first is a letter I sent recently to Delta's Airlines management. Delta has launched an ambitious new program using an AI company named Fetcher to potentially do technology-driven price gouging. And I have tremendous concerns with this issue. First, what Delta is using is these AI tools that literally will look at your personal history. The AI company Fetcher CEO says they gather as much information as possible. And then they can actually use this to micro-target you for your plane fare. The AI company has said it could add literally $4 trillion to the overall airline's top lines if it's used across the whole system. So think about what this means. It means that if the AI tool knows that you've had a death in the family or knows that you have a relative in a disaster-stricken area and you have to go there, they can target you and jack up the price. Or a more common example, if they know you got Taylor Swift tickets and you know it's in Community X and you're buying a plane fare there, they can jack that price up as high as they want. So we've written Delta, a couple of other members and I, to just get an explanation. How are you using this, and how are you going to protect against price gouging individual Americans? Americans are living in a inflation-driven economy already. President Trump has not brought down prices, and now they're going to squeeze the last pennies out of you on a ticket price by knowing when and where you have to fly. We need answers. The second part of this is just plain data privacy. The company, again, says they're collecting this information from all sources. Do we really want our airlines knowing when we've had that death in the family, or if you've bought tickets to a concert in another city? This begs the point that we still do not have any national data privacy legislation, but it is incumbent upon the airlines, if they're using this tool, how to make sure that Americans' data is protected. I think this is an issue that we're just at the beginning of. I think as other airlines start to use it, Delta has said they hope to really roll it out to 20% of their customer base this year. I think we need some answers before this potentially price gouging tool becomes just par for the course. Second issue is one that I thought I'd seen it all from the Trump administration, but I have never seen a group more frenzied at trying to throw every kind of distraction against the wall to take the public's attention off the release of the Epstein files. I mean, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. Donald Trump campaigned on the idea, don't worry, when he becomes president, he's going to release all these files. Well, now it becomes evident that it appears, and there's real legal questions about this, that the Attorney General may have tipped off the president that he may be listed in these files. Now, again, we don't know what that means, whether it's good or bad or innocuous, but the American public deserves to see these files. Literally, the House of Representatives raced out of town because the majority was going to vote for a subpoena and a release. I've seen it personally in terms of this obstruction and trying to deflect attention from the intelligence community. About a week ago, DNI Director Gabbard brought out kind of the greatest hits from the 2016 Russia intervention, trying to claim that somehow Obama was aware, or there's a hoax, or there's a conspiracy. Pure bunk. I will remind folks that I was the chair and vice chair of the Intelligence Committee, that we worked for 3 years on a bipartisan report that confirmed that while Russia did not interfere with any of the vote counting or vote tabulation, they had a massive campaign to try to influence the election, to spread false rumors, the whole WikiLeaks release of information. It's because Vladimir Putin favored Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. That is settled fact from the intelligence community, bipartisan. And I will remind folks that the current Secretary of State was my partner in a lot of those efforts. So this effort to deflect, that was bad enough a week ago. But then yesterday, Director Gabbard hit a new low where she released a confidential report that I have to tell you, the first Trump administration threatened to release, and everyone from the Trump national security environment said if you release that, the Attorney General even threatened to resign. So that level of sensitivity that could potentially expose what's called sources and methods, which in reality means someone that could read this report with the right background knowledge might be able to identify how we are able to have any kind of espionage against Russia. That careless release of that report, I believe without CIA's even ability to redact anything, shows how low they will go, particularly this Director of National Intelligence, who seems to have no respect for the men and women who work in that community, or for the relations that we have as we try to recruit and maintain a spying network. Nations spy on each other. We do that. The bad guys do that. But the idea of our information and sources and methods are exposed, who's going to work with us? It is the height of irresponsibility, but frankly not something I'm that terribly surprised from this Director of National Intelligence, who has done more to politicize the intelligence product than anyone in modern history. Finally, one piece of good news. This gets kind of wonky, but when we passed the PACT Act a few years back to help veterans who had exposure to Agent Orange and fire pits, that dramatically increased services to those veterans. Part of that required the construction of a series of new outpatient clinics. One of those clinics are going to be in Southampton Roads, where 60% of our veterans reside. That lease got caught up with a couple of 18 other leases that required additional congressional review. I've been updating the community. The final committee signed off just this week. So now the VA will be able to move forward on this new outpatient clinic, which will be much needed in Southampton Roads. So a little bit of good news in an otherwise kind of challenging week. With that, I know, Valeria, do you want to go ahead and give me some of the questions?
Yes. Our first question is from Olivia Williams with CBS 19.
Okay. Hi, Senator Warner. So Charlottesville City Schools have told parents that the Trump administration's funding pause left a $400,000 budget gap. And yesterday, Tim Kaine said that this action from the Trump administration was unlawful, as the president cannot withhold funds approved by Congress. But with Virginia not joining the lawsuit brought forward, what else is being done about this?
Well, thank goodness there is this lawsuit. And it will, I hope, have ramifications, even though I think it was crazy for Virginia not to participate. But the fact is, Donald Trump is not a king. He's a president. Congress has the power of the purse. And for him to arbitrarily cheat programs just because he doesn't like their political purpose or doesn't like the fact that they actually are helping people in need is unlawful. And we're going to continue to press to get these funds released to make sure that the services that are provided, that are so necessary when so many philanthropic efforts are under assault, when people, I think about in the immigrant community, are afraid to drop off their kids for school or go to the courthouse and pay a ticket. That community is incredibly important to our economy, and all of these efforts, to cut off funds for nonprofits, for other organizations, is wrong. And I agree with Tim. What the president's doing is unlawful, and we need to not only litigate, but also continue to put pressure on the administration to release those dollars.
Senator, the next question is from Mitchell Miller with WTOP.
Hi, Senator. Thanks again for joining us. I wanted to go back to the intelligence issues with Tulsi Gabbard. As you know, the report that she put out appears to be in part a warmed-over version of that House Intelligence Committee report. And also, as you know, this is the first time a director of national intelligence has leveled these kind of allegations against a former president or administration. So beyond being a distraction, is there a danger or a precedent being set here?
Yes, there is a danger. And the precedent is Tulsi Gabbard, who promised that she would be willing to speak truth to power, is nothing but a sycophant for Donald Trump. I think she was on the way out because she had disagreed with the president on the Iran assessment. And now she's doing everything possible. And if that means disclosing classified information, if it means undermining the intelligence workforce to try to distract, if it means her trying to make unfounded claims against former President Obama, frankly, it's a disgrace. And one more reason why you break these norms and you unleash these kind of unhinged attacks, and you frankly lower the political debate. This is purely attempt to take the attention off the Epstein file. But when a director of national intelligence is this careless and makes these kind of unfounded claims, I keep going to my Republican Senate friends. When will enough be enough? How much more damage can this director do to the intelligence workforce, to the integrity of the intelligence product? And what she's doing now is not only making fruitless claims, but she's also undermining, again, the trust relationship we have with allies around the world. And I hear this on a regular basis.
So our next question is from Joshua Gingrich with WFXR.
Hi, Senator. Thank you for taking my call. My question. The House Appropriations Committee has approved $17 million to meet some of the most immediate needs to widen Interstate 81, and it will need bipartisan support to pass in the Senate. Will you vote for it? And what more do you think the federal government can do to improve I-81?
Well, listen, I've been working on I-81 improvements since I was governor, and where the most amount of additional funding for I-81 ever came from the infrastructure bill under President Biden, the bipartisan bill that I was part of. So I want there to be a bipartisan appropriations process and not do the stupidity of what's called a continuing resolution, which would mean we've got, we'll have no additional funding. But we've got to have a group that, the thing I worry about is what happens if we pass this and then Donald Trump decides, well, I don't want to really fund I-81 because I don't like Virginia. I mean, that kind of arbitrariness we have to guard against. And I think we're trying to work in good faith with our Republican colleagues to get that done. And I hope we have a bipartisan appropriations bill that will make sure we continue the funding on I-81 improvements. But remember, the biggest clump of money for I-81 came from the infrastructure bill. And I was proud to be one of the key authors and negotiators on that.
There are final questions from Allison Mullet with WSET.
Hi, Senator. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the Epstein files. So the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that President Trump's name is on the list in the files multiple times. If this is true, what action do you think should be taken, and do you feel that this is grounds for impeachment? Well,
listen, let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's why we need the release of the files. It's obviously been evident for years that there have been photos of Trump and Epstein, how close the relationship was. Did Trump write the letter, the obscene letter, complimenting Epstein on his birthday? I don't know the answer. So let's get the truth out. I mean, remember the hypocrisy of this is Donald Trump campaigned on this issue. He got all of his supporters all up in arms like, don't worry, rich and powerful people are going to be held accountable. Well, let's see what the files say. And I am not going to, I'm not going to presume. It could just be that He was one of the names associated. There could be more. I don't know. The only way we're going to clear that up is if these files are released. And the hypocrisy of the administration trying to do everything possible to distract the American public, and the fact that there were enough Republicans in the House who were going to say, hey, we want the information, that the Speaker sent them home early for summer vacation. It's, I think the American public is smart enough to see this kind of deception and efforts to kind of distract. American people want to know the answer, and we got to get the answer.
Senator, that was our final question.
Thanks, everybody. Stay cool.